right, well, let's dive in. Welcome to everyone. We are here today to have a conversation about 3 learner-centered professional learning practices that we love and use often with our partners that we hope that you can take back to your school or district. So we really thank you, of course, for being here today, and we are so excited for this discussion, which will include an overview, as I'd mentioned, of 3 practices and plenty of time for questions at the end. So speaking of questions and comments, please feel free to use the chat or the Zoom Q&A tool throughout the session. We will be responding both in real time, and then for the big juicy questions, we'll save those for the end, where we'll have some time for question and answer with all of the facilitators. But with that, let's do some introductions. So I'll kick us off. You already know I'm from the South. You may have heard it in my y'all, but I'm Brittany Griffin, a Director of Strategic Partnerships here at the Learner-Centered Collaborative. I've been in education for the last 15 years and have held roles all the way from the classroom as a high school French teacher to instructional coach, to ed tech coach, to learner-centered consultant. At LCC, I support a portfolio of partners ranging from individual schools all the way up to states like Utah and Indiana as they design and implement statewide learner-centered frameworks. When I think about my own professional learning, the types of experiences that stand out and really work for me are the ones that include time for me to meaningfully collect with other people doing the work, and time for me to build and create something that I can use immediately in my real world. Over to Katina.
Hi, welcome everybody. I am joining you from Weatherford, Texas. And as much as I want to be Southern and Texan like Bree, I am joining you from Texas, only being here 2 years. Born and raised in Southern California, but I'm embracing my country roots. I've been in education over 25 years in multiple roles, starting as a bilingual instructional aide, as a teacher, assistant principal, and a principal, all in San Diego County. And at the Learner-Centered Collaborative, I'm a partner, and I get to work with a broad range of district, state, and school systems that are working on creating their unique frameworks and creating their strategic plans for innovation and success. When I think about my professional learning, like Brittany, many of the same things, but ones that sparked joy. I wanted to be happy in the learning that I was doing. And I also wanted to make sure that I was growing both personally and moving forward collectively. Now I'm going to kick it over to Bree.
Well, first off, Katina, we like to say you don't have to be born here. It's okay. You got here as soon as you could. We understand how that goes. So I'm Bree Hodges. I am from the great state of Texas. And although I kind of feel right now these days, I'm a little quasi dual citizen with California. I've been spending a lot of time over there right now, but I am part of this wonderful strategic partnership team and impact team here at Learner-Centered Collaborative. I have been in education as a taller student. We're not going to count all the way back to my student days, but for 15 years, and have had roles ranging from middle school and high school English teacher, shocker to most of you out there, basketball and track coach, instructional coach, district administrator, and executive cabinet member. But most importantly and nearest and dearest to my heart, in addition to all of those things, is the role that I currently have as a mama learner. So I have 2 kiddos of my own that are in that kind of tween and teen age. And so for those of you out there with your own personal children, there's nothing like being on the other end of education, where you get to experience it through your kiddos' eyes. And so with that said, I get to lock arms and with leaders and learners all across the nation to help them center their purpose, elevate their practice, and celebrate their impact. And for me, I have always found learning to be most meaningful when I feel connected to purpose, to the priorities, and to the people. So that's kind of a little bit of my story.
Thanks, Bree. Well, true to our learner-centered approach, we'd love to understand who's in this virtual room with us and what past experiences and contexts that you're bringing. So we want to give you a chance to answer the same question that we just shared. What professional learning experience most positively impacted your practice? Let's blow up the chat. Can't wait to hear from you. Neil shared his work on state initiatives. Oh, action research, of course. Who doesn't love that opportunity to learn and implement right at the same time? Katina's given you heart eyes, Neil, as Neil near and dear to our hearts. Corey talked about site visits to innovation districts. Oh, Corey, you may want to chat with Michael Hakkarainen, who's also on the call. He's got lots of experience doing that in Utah. Very, very, very powerful. Neil says serving on a board of professional associations. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, we'll keep things moving, but feel free to continue adding in the chat as you reflect back on professional learning experiences that you've had that have really made an impact. Based on our years of collective experience in the classroom that you just heard us rattle off our resumes, we, the three of us here, have learned that for an experience, a learning experience to be learner-centered, they need to be personalized, authentic, competency-based, and inclusive and equitable. And what we also know is that teachers and adults deserve learner-centered environments as well. So we heard this over and over, right? In our stories that we shared, and even those that you just shared in the chat. When professional development is aligned with you and it's personalized to your strengths and it's authentic to the context of your classroom and it's competency-based so that you can know what you know and know what you're still working on and mark your progress towards that, when all of those elements of learner-centered are in place, professional development is more enjoyable and more impactful. So let's take a look at some practices that we use to leverage the creation of an environment like this. At LCC, we try to meet schools and districts where they are, and we do that through a variety of work streams, ranging from building a framework for the future or creating enabling conditions for change, maybe supporting educators in classroom implementations and learner-centered strategies directly with their students, even leadership coaching. So lots and lots of services, that's just to name a few. But the three strategies that we're discussing today are examples of professional learning protocols and practices that our partners across the country have found the most valuable. And while they can certainly happen in isolation, they are best used in elements of a larger, bigger learner-centered approach for change. So Bree, why don't you kick us off with an overview of student forums?
All righty, thank you so much. So I'm going to celebrate this quote real quickly about understanding human needs is half the job of meeting them. Love this quote. It is so important for us when we approach our work to understand and recognize the people that we are serving. Without it, there's really no point to our work. And so one of the things that we really want to think through is so often we start to make assumptions based upon what are, while very well intentioned and often informed from our own experiences, we start to kind of take a best guess on our part and apply it to others. So let's dive in and take a look at what these things come in through. So first off, I don't know how many Elvis fans we have out there, but the King might have gotten a lot right when it came to music, no doubt. But when it comes to leading learner-centered change, he got one thing a little turned around. Old Swivel Hips encouraged us to prioritize action over conversation. But in our work, we have found most especially when initiating and evaluating change, it's a concerted effort to listen to one another that is often the most powerful practice. There's no better way to understand what's working and challenging and what's possible than to begin with students. So we do this by welcoming them to the table. We want to sit next to them and show interest in their thoughts, experiences, and ideas. We want to resist the urge to talk at them. And instead, we want to make sure that we are engaging with them. For those of you who know me, my favorite prepositional phrase is with. And so much power comes along with that, where we can now come in, lock arms side by side, and start to attack that problem or our challenges, or even our dreams and our hopes together. People love and appreciate feeling heard, especially when the change affects them. And let's face it, students receive the greatest impact of what we do in education. So change, after all, is very personal. And when we use a personalized approach like student focus groups to do this data gathering, we underscore our commitment to centering our practices on learners. This does a couple different things. So first and foremost, it conveys significance and builds community and belonging by asking students to voice their opinions and share meaningful experiences. The other thing that comes along with this is we increase engagement by getting students to have some skin in the game, right? We're starting to ask them for their insights, their stories, their expertise. We're no longer planning things for them or doing things to them. We're asking them about their own experiences, asking them to share their stories. And lastly, this helps us reinforce empathy by asking students to listen to what their peers are saying in the room so that we can build themes so that they can also build those themes that are built upon, solidified. They can understand where they have shared viewpoints, maybe with people that they haven't interacted with before, and also reminds them that that there are also alternative perspectives out there. So with that, kind of moving forward with this idea, we got to avoid echo chambers and mirrors. Oftentimes we find ourselves creating circumstances that will allow for our bias to be confirmed. And so that's what we want to try to avoid. We don't want to try to create that situation to come in over and over again. Instead, we want to make sure that we're touching and tapping into the expertise of other people. The last thing that we want to talk about whenever we're trying to create these situations is we want to make sure that we're considering how the roles of space, allotted time, group size, as well as group dynamics, circumstances, and conditions influence and encourage sharing, dialogue, and relational trust. And that's a whole bunch of stuff all thrown into one, but we can never, ever, ever discount the power of deliberate design. So let's kind of take that apart a little bit and go into what that can look like. So when we're talking about deliberate design, some of the things that we see that work the best, and these are kid-tested, leader-approved design principles out there, is how can we make sure that we are using our group size to create the most conducive environment for robust conversation. So that happens when we have maybe 1 or 2 adults in the room with up to 10 kids. That's kind of ideal. We get really tempted to try to put together these really big groups, but the problem is that limits the voices that can be shared, and it just creates a different group dynamic that isn't going to accomplish what we're hoping for. We also want to make sure that we're in a comfortable, inviting space. So again, I know that sometimes we find ourselves, okay, well, we'll use the lecture hall or the auditorium or the cafeteria or even an empty classroom, and we'll have the person who's leading the conversations stand up at the front of the classroom like the teacher would. But think about what group dynamics you're already creating in that situation. If you want to engage with your learners and with your students, you want to make sure that you're sitting down with them, creating a comfortable environment. One that has food is always encouraged, right? Giving them something to nosh on actually serves a couple different purposes. One, makes it a special treat, and 2, it kind of gives some rest time or some chew time, if you will, to allow other people to share their voices as they go into it. Another big thing that I have found to be super, super successful, and I want to couch this with always make sure you ask first. And I've never been turned down, but I always make sure that I ask first to audio record when I'm doing a student focus group, and I usually just do it with either my phone or my iPad, and I just pop on audio notes. And one of the things that I tell the kids is I'm not going to, I'm not sharing this out to get anybody in trouble or any of this stuff. It's really truly just this opportunity for me, because I know that we're going to get so caught up in conversation that I'm going to forget to take notes. And so this just makes sure that all these things that you're sharing really and truly are going to impact how we do things in our district. And I want to make sure that I give all of that the credence that it needs. And I've so far, knock on wood, I've had 100% with that approach. And kids, they want to know that you value their opinion enough in order for them to for you to remember it and for you to be able to hold on to it. That said, when you are talking with kiddos, one of the things that we want to remember is to value their voices and their experiences, and we do that through the assurance that we give in two ways. First and foremost, we applaud their honesty and their candor. They're going to tell you some things that might kind of make you bristle a little bit, and it's important to thank them for sharing that. And sometimes I've even been in situations where you get a little bit of disagreement between kiddos, and it's important again to then applaud them for noting that two different people can experience the same thing in different ways and have a different view on it, right? So reminding them that their experience is so important to this process. The other part that comes along with this is making notes of action items and follow up with that particular student to help them reinforce that you really do mean it when you say they have value and that you are interested in taking what they say and putting that forward. Now, all of a sudden, it's gone beyond that hour that you've had with those kids to now all of a sudden you're seeing it down the road. And I think it's so important that we keep those things in place. The last part of deliberate design that I want to hit on real quick is coming up with some questions. And one of the things that we do when we go in and we have these student focus groups is we don't just have one student focus group. Often when we're looking at a district, we'll go onto multiple campuses and try to make sure that we're hitting every campus and every grade level in order to bring in that cross section. Or even if we're just at a single campus location, remembering to do more than just 10. So looking into different ways that we can bring those in there. That said, it's important to use the same question prompts to make sure that you're getting a similar opportunity for responses. So I'm going to share my 3 questions that I my go-to questions, and those are pretty straightforward. The first one is what gets or keeps you excited about coming to our school? So this is a great way for them to find something to celebrate, right? The second question, and I will tell you, it's so fun to one of my favorite memories of doing a student focus group with a school district. A few months ago, I was with high school kids, and I asked them, what keeps you excited about coming to our school? Or what's something that stands out to you? And it was so fun because these high school kids were thinking back to when they were 5th graders and they got to have reading buddies. And that was so powerful to them that here they are 5 and 6 years later, bonding over that experience with these people that were in the room, because everybody started, sharing about it. And it just, it spoke into the culture of that school district and of the campuses as they moved forward. So the second question is looking at, so now we know what we really, really like, but what do we wish that we could change? So what would you change or remove about the school? And I'll go ahead and tell you, spoiler alert, probably number 1 of that is something around food, right? They always wish they had better food, and quickly followed by something either around start time or more time to go to be outside. And then usually in that top 3 rounded out with something along the lines of bathrooms. But that said, when you do this at your own campus, please let me know what your top 3 things that you want to change that you hear back. Would love to compare that with what I've experienced. The last thing is, what is something that you would add? What would you love for us to bring to our school that's not part of our current experience? And so just to kind of summarize what we're doing in that thing, with those 3 specific questions, is it gives us a chance to highlight what's working. It gives us an opportunity to identify where we could be and what is maybe not working the way that we want it to. And then it gives us some insight into what is a hope for difference. So with that said, I want to share one final slide, and I'm just gonna. This is actually from from a student focus group that I did in Mineola, New York. Shout out to Mike Nagler. And we got to sit down and meet with so many different students. And this particular student that this photo, her name is Becca, and she wrote this poem and or this kind of manifesto, I guess, of what being heard and having your voice, having your voice recognized means to students. And I thought this was so powerful. So just to share her words with you, if I feel like I belong, then I will be able to connect. If I feel a connection, then I will be able to share my ideas. If I can share my ideas, then I will have confidence. If I have confidence, then I will develop self-efficacy. If I develop self-efficacy, then I will believe that I can overcome any obstacle. If I believe in myself and my ability to grow, then I will become successful. And I just absolutely love, I still get chills thinking about it. I'm immediately transported back to sitting across from Becca and having that conversation with her. And it just hits you square in the heart that what we do as educators is to create opportunities for kiddos to lean into who they are and to become who they hope to be, dream to be, and want to be. And it's so very, very important that we listen to their voices, that we hear their stories, and that we find ways to make those things come true. So with that said, we do have a tool that we're gonna share with you. It's available on our website. I think Joe's dropped it into the chat for us. If you're looking to create some conversation and to create these student focus groups, you might want to be, kind of considering what questions. And so you can download this tool. And I think there's 10 questions there kind of separated out and categorized to get you thinking. So that said, I would love to hear how you take it. And I'm going to pass it over to Britt.
Well, thanks, Bree. So we're going to pivot a moment. And instead of talking, a protocol about talking, we're going to go to a visual protocol and talk about learning walks. We know that when you focus on the good gets better. And one way to spot and celebrate the good is by conducting learning walks, getting out into classrooms and seeing teaching and learning. So with all things, right, let's start with the why. What's the purpose of a learning walk? Why would you host one? And there are lots and lots of reasons why this is a tried and true practice, but we've isolated our top 3. First, learning walks, at least our version of learning walks, are very strengths-based. Every teacher loves being recognized for their hard work. And learning walks can help leaders or anyone who visits a classroom celebrate the existing bright spots, however big or small they might be at that moment. Reason number 2, you build some relational trust. When you visit a classroom without a clipboard or an evaluation form, the vibe changes, right? The emphasis shifts from a compliance and punition and a negative energy or a judgmental energy to learning from each other. And the classroom becomes a learning space, not just for students, but for the adults too. And together, you make meaning and can converse about teaching and learning and build this culture of a non-evaluative observation. And finally, reason number 3. After your learning walk, once you've got a snapshot of the strengths that are in your building, you may be able to spot opportunities and trends for growth and learning across the building. So now that we've defined the why, what exactly is a learning walk? Well, it's one of my personal favorite strategies because it is so simple. You could knock out a learning walk in a classroom in under 15 minutes. Although full disclosure, most people like to daisy chain them and see multiple classrooms back to back. So basically you will assemble a walk team. I recommend somewhere between 3 to 5 people, although you can certainly accommodate bigger groups if you'd like. You'll align on what you're looking for on your learning walk. Are there specific outcomes or learning experiences that you want to celebrate? And then you go visit a classroom for about 5 minutes. And then after that visit, you pop into the hallway and debrief with the group. What did you see? What can you celebrate? What can you highlight? What impressed you? That's it. Low prep, high impact, getting out into your building and visiting classrooms. So after spending a lot of time on learning walks, there are 3 norms that I've put into practice and I strongly recommend that you consider. First is just take the picture, right? I always forget to do this, but now I carry my cell phone with me. Most likely you've already got yours in your pocket. Take pictures in the classrooms. I have found countless ways for school leaders, district leaders to use these photos. Quick and easy, send an email to the educator that you visited afterwards with the photo, celebrating a specific strategy that she had tried or that he had attempted. Maybe post it on your school social media feed to publicly shout out an educator. Or maybe even project it during a faculty meeting to celebrate something that you saw. In short, just take the pictures. You won't regret it. A second tip, this one's an easy one. When you enter the classroom, it can be really tempting to start asking questions to understand what it is that you are observing. But I found it really productive to resist that urge and instead silently look around the room, watch the students, watch and listen to the teacher. Check out what's on the board, check out what's on the walls. The power of observation is just that, it's powerful. And it may lead at the end of the observation to asking the 1 or 2 just right questions without disrupting too much of the instructional experience. And finally, another quick and easy tip, leave feedback. Write a quick little note to the teacher that you visited. This can be as small as like a handwritten post-it, or like I mentioned, a short email afterwards, bonus points if you throw in a picture, but a few celebratory or positive words can go a really long way in helping create that culture of trust with your teachers. Learning walks can make visible like all the great things that are happening in your school or district. As you can see in these images, there's a lot of variability, right? The group could be smaller or larger. The visits can be planned or spontaneous. And even those who are going on the learning walk can be flexible. You could invite administrators, but I've actually found the most powerful learning walks happening with the educators themselves, getting the chance to walk in to each other's classrooms to honor and celebrate the great things that they can beg, borrow, and steal to try in their classrooms. So in short, learning walks are incredibly flexible. So to get started, we've also got a tool for learning walks. If you'd like some support for you and your team to define those look-fors, the things that you'd like to spot in a learning walk, we have a tool here to help you craft that before you visit classrooms. Hopefully you enjoy. With that, I will pass it over to Katina.
Awesome. Thank you, Britt. I just made it like a connection that we talked a little bit about using our senses, listening to our learners, seeing what we can observe in our classrooms. And now we're going to dig in a little bit more to speaking, how the power of coaching might improve performance across the system. And we love this quote by our very own Katie Martin: "Those who are willing to show up and be brave, not perfect, are paving the way and innovating to create the path forward." And kudos to all of you that joined us today for showing up and being willing to learn together. So I want you to pause for a second. Think back on a recent meeting you were in. Maybe it was a PLC. It could have been a recent professional development session. Did you leave wondering what the purpose was? Did you have a clear next step from that session or that meeting? Were you clear about what was expected of you? Hopefully you can say yes. In many cases, this happens where people are leaving unclear. They don't have a defined next step. They don't see how this moves their work forward. So we often create structures, programs, curriculum, or innovations before we truly understand the vision, the underlying pedagogy, and have clear goals that we can map out to achieve our vision. We believe at LCC that learning is a process and not an event. And you can see here that we're really intentionally starting with a clear mission, vision, values, whole child outcomes, all the way into having these learning cycles. And I love this quote by Dylan William. He's a leading educational consultant and author. He says, "If we create a culture where every teacher believes they need to improve, not because they are not good enough, but because they can be even better, there is no limit to what we can achieve." We believe that applies to all staff that are working in educational systems, and coaching is one amazing strategy to support individual growth. I love coaching in particular because it borrows from these two elements of consulting and therapy. It's impactful in bringing together the best of these two worlds. And just as we want whole child outcomes for our learners in schools, we want whole person outcomes for those that serve within our classrooms, schools, and districts, especially now. Education, I think, has never been more complex, at least in my past 25 years. And hopefully coaching can help individuals build self-awareness around the various roles they serve both professionally and personally. The coaching process adapts to the individual circumstances, meeting people where they are with what they need when they need it. The coachee, not the coach, sets the goals, defines the plan, and paints a picture of success. And the coach is there to bring perspective, share expertise, and support a growth mindset in service of lifelong learning. And I love this visual. Shout out to @Bree for surfacing. But just look at the impact in this table when coaching is added. When we can combine intentional planning, goals, clear success metrics, we can enable human performance by helping to support schools in their efforts to embed powerful, sustainable professional development. It's not a shotgun approach. It's not a one-size-fits-all. It really is intended to be personalized and authentic and support individual progress and collective growth. So coaching empowers educators and leaders to empower their colleagues. So lifelong learning mindset combined with increased trust that promotes action and inspires change. And here at LCC, we have approximately 60-ish leaders across the country that we're working with. Can be coordinators, assistant superintendents, principals, and we meet them where they are. We're doing some alignment to make sure that the work that we discuss is aligned to their priorities as a system. And we meet 30 to 60 minutes, depending on their schedule. We have a vast amount of resources and tools and protocols that we leverage depending on their current needs. And just to give you an example, just the last couple of weeks in my coaching sessions, I have about close to 40 folks that I work with each month. We've planned staff meetings with clear outcomes and action items as a result of leaving that meeting. We've spent time practicing to have difficult conversations when they have a staff member that, maybe needs some guidance and or support. And it's hard to have those radical candor conversations, but they're necessary. We do a lot of strategizing around initiatives that they have in place and making sure that there's clear communications, that there's clear success metrics, that we're checking in on progress regularly. And then we do a lot of reflection to create work-life balance. At the end of many sessions, a lot of people will thank me and call me Dr. Hancock, that they just feel like they've had an opportunity to show up as their authentic true self, feel like they've been heard and can leave with some clear next steps for their learning. So we would love, if you want to do a little reflection and planning, we have our protocol for change where you can think about what's important to you and create an action plan to start to strategize. And we would love to hear from you if you ever need any additional supports. And with that, and wanting to leave time for some questions and answers, we first want to make sure that we go back to our learner-centered principles that we started with and find out from you what feels most authentic and relevant to you and your needs. What brought you here today that you really wanted to learn more about? We'd love to have you answer this quick poll. And we'll give it just a second for folks to share their responses, and then we'll have our Vanna White behind the scenes, Naomi, share the results, and then we'll kick it off to you all for some Q&A. And if you have questions already surfacing and you want to go ahead and add them to the chat, please feel free. Maybe Simon can give out some points, some famous Simon points for the first person that puts a question in the chat. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. Brittany, looks like you got a great response on your learning walks. Love it.
For
Just
those
kidding.
who are excited,
There's no winning or losing here.
well, for those of you who are excited about learning walks, please don't hesitate to reach out. This is, like I said, one of my favorite strategies. So reach out. I'd love to help you get started.
Awesome. All right, Joe.
Okay, our top question here is, how do these practices we shared today work in isolation if they aren't part of a larger partnership or work stream? Maybe I'll pass it to Britt since you got that poll.
Oh, that's such a great question. I think in an ideal world, these are part of a bigger change implementation, but I'll just use learning walks as an example. They're so informal that with the right framing, right, if you let folks know what you're doing, they are so non-intrusive that they really can just be used as a daily or weekly or monthly practice. I think the same of coaching, the same as student forums. They have it, the protocol themselves have enough integrity and impact that they can be used in isolation, but they're such powerful tools if they're connected to a larger change movement. I don't know if that answered the question. Katina or Bree, you're more articulate. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I think one of the things I would just add is, there's the power of people hearing and seeing. So even if you started one of these practices with a colleague and you too listened to learners or did a learning walk, and your colleagues see and hear and feel the impact that that's having on your individual practice. So it's like wildfire, right? It starts with a small flame and then it continues to grow as we add fuel to the fire. And so just taking that first step and jumping in and trying it is a good first step.
Yeah. Okay, we'll try to get to one more. Bree, this one's for you. Who do you normally include in student forums? You talked about size, but I think this question has to do with the who.
So I think that's a really great question. And a lot of it depends on, well, first and foremost, it depends upon what it is that you're trying to get information about, right? And so it's always really important to keep the outcome, right? To design with the end in mind and keep that, that thought going as you start to choose specifically around age levels and those types of situations, because you want to, that will really kind of dictate whether you're going to cast a really, really wide net. Maybe it is a complete and total campus-wide or district-wide initiative, and you want to get representation from all different types of stakeholders. If that's the case, one of the things that I like to do is I create kind of a little mini version of a stakeholder map. And so I start thinking about who all is impacted in this work, right? And so, again, newsflash, you can't just say students, right? So you got to really like break it apart. Like, is this, are there special pops that it's associated for? Is this, is this about, is it something about scheduling? And so if so, then I want to make sure that I'm keeping in mind all the different organizations and different types of clubs or initiatives or leveling or pathways or any of that kind of stuff. And I don't want to make any assumptions on anybody's part. And so when I start to make those stakeholder maps, then I can, you kind of find yourself, if any of you are used to doing that design thinking, where you start like going through those Post-it notes really quickly, and you start to go down that rabbit trail where it's like, okay, now I want to talk about, like all the different clubs. So maybe it's students that are interested in agriculture programs, or they're interested in, you kind of think through all of your pathways. Once you get your stakeholders, then again, and you've gone through like your top tier or your first tier of these are the people that these are their groups, then start to think through kind of some micro niches that might be in there. Do you have representation from 504 or special abilities and populations? Are you making sure that you're getting that information or what their experiences are? How about your other language learners and areas like that? How are you connecting in all of these different pieces? The other thing that I want to remind you when you are doing that is you're going to get a really big bucket. And so when you do that, again, kind of reminding ourselves that it's okay to have a whole lot of stakeholders. What that might mean is that you're going to need to have more than one or even more than, a few focus groups. And it's okay to have multiple adults involved in that, right? So we said that we want to have like usually between 1 and 2 adults to 10, but that doesn't mean that you have to be as that one adult present in every single one. That's where the importance of having those questions come in, because the question creates that same opportunity for engagement, but then it gives us that part in there. So hopefully that gives you a couple ideas of how you might be able to slice and dice up your stakeholders and really drill it in.
Thanks, Bree. Yeah, we don't have time for any more questions, but please use that email we put in the chat or the connect to us form, and we're happy to dig deeper. I also in the chat am going to put a link to our next webinar if you're interested to join, and I'll kick it back over to Bree to close us out.
Awesome. So with that said, we have got the very next webinar is coming up with one of our own folks that's right here on the webinar with us today. Our newest and greatest recruit right now is Marlon Stiles. It's going to be joining Devin Vadishka on March 28th, Tuesday, March 28th, where they're going to be talking about, I wish we could have Marlon like on the screen right now, flex your superpower, how to create a learner-centered approach to engaging stakeholders. So if you are wondering how do we bring in these students and create those learner-centered focus groups, this is a great way of like, how do we engage and create opportunities with our stakeholders of reaching out at that from another angle in there. So hopefully you will make time. That webinar link is out there on social media and available on our website and through our emails. And with that said, we hope to hear from you guys. Connect with us on social media, connect with us on email, all the different things. And if you've got questions, we're here. We're happy to help and answer and connect in any way that we can.